Well, hello, and welcome to part two of how to avoid the disappearing dating disaster known as ghosting. And actually, in part two, we're going to be talking more specifically about how to survive it. So if you haven't seen part one, it was last week's Real Love Revolution video, so you want to actually hit that first. And part two is if this phenomenon has already happened to you, or if you are the person ghosting others. This video is for you. My name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the founder of the Real Love Revolution. So, in the last video, we talked about different ways that you can, signs and symptoms that someone may be about to ghost you or someone who has the potential to be a ghoster. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about you. What does it mean about you if you are having this experience multiple times, and how can you get over it? So from a psychotherapeutic point of view, this can be very painful to be in this experience. It could be very painful to have people just disappearing in your life. It does not feel good. And there's a lot of why me? What did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? And that is the wrong path. Okay, so that won't help you. That will just make you feel like crap. So we're not going to go down that road. Let's just establish ways of behavior that can, A, protect you a little bit in this dating game. Because here's the thing. The world has changed. Dating has changed. With the advent of online dating and all of these apps, you can meet people on vacation in Europe and other cities. And it really is a whole different world, a whole new world. I'm not necessarily thinking it's better, easier to a degree, but the accountability that you may or may not feel to people that you've met on these apps has everything to do with the way that you are treating them, or they may be treating you if you're in a ghosting situation. So being ghosted, where someone just stops contacting you, and it can be in the middle of anything. There are stories out there of someone who was actually dating someone and they were supposed to go to a wedding with them, and they just didn't show up the day that they were traveling to the wedding together. Like, wow, who does that? What does that mean if you do that? It's something that says a lot about the person who's doing the ghosting. And what I find in my therapy practice is that mainly women who've been ghosted, not that some men haven't, they have, but my practice is mainly women. And it makes you feel confused, helpless, hurt, rejected, and even more so if you've actually been intimate with that person, right? So that really feels like a rejection of you. And I think it's time really to take a long, hard look at the whole process, because really, it really is in your control. So let's talk about how you can get empowered in this online dating world, because of course we cannot control what other people do, but you really can control what you do, what you make it mean, how you react to it, and how much you allow it to affect you. So feeling this feeling, and when you start obsessing, if you've been ghosted and you allow it to obsess your mind, if you're ruminating about it all the time and thinking about what's wrong with you, this is not the correct mindset. Because the truth is, the question really is, what's wrong with that person that they don't have enough consideration for another human being to write a text message that they're no longer interested. So it's definitely a fear-based response on their part. But instead of you obsessing about it or feeling used and upset and all of those things, you really have to see it as a favor, right? Someone did you a favor, because someone who has the capacity to just disappear, that is a very emotionally immature response to feeling overwhelmed. It's actually them saying, I'm in a position where I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to run away. It's just like a child. So you really have to look at it from the point of view of that's about them. What's about you is what you put up with. So let's talk about how can you not be in that position again? And part of it is to pay attention to the way that someone is treating you. If their communication is erratic, that's not good. If they don't respond to you, right? I think that it is safe to have a 48 hour, maybe 72 hour rule that if somebody doesn't get back to you or doesn't contact you in that period of time, unless they've told you they're traveling for business or that they won't be, that tells us that they're not mature enough to communicate, and they're not going to be mature enough to communicate later. This is what I find is your piece of this, is that most women, because they're taught to be nice and they have the disease to please and they're afraid to seem like that crazy girl, right? So they let all these things slide. So if the guy says, hey, let's talk on Friday and try to make a plan for the weekend, and they don't get in touch with you on Friday, and you don't get in touch with them on Friday, or you do and they don't get back to you, and then on Sunday night, they contact you being like, hey, how was your weekend? If you don't say, hey man, I thought you were going to get in touch with me on Friday. Why didn't you? Or, I don't communicate that way. That's not my way. I'm not acting as if shit didn't happen or that you didn't say things. Because here's the thing, it's so much better to know right up front who this person is. Now, if you don't say anything and they contact you on Sunday and you're like, oh, it was fine, how was yours? And you make it normal, that means you're colluding with them not keeping their word, which is 50% your problem now. So I'm going to inspire you to have a rule. If they don't contact you within 72 hours, after you've contacted them, then either they're not interested or they're really ambivalent, right? They're unsure of how they feel, and you don't need this crap. So you have to be the one. If someone doesn't keep their word, you can't be so afraid of their judgment or so afraid of losing them when you don't even know them that you put up with crap that is unhealthy, right? So if they break the rule, so let's say you decide it's a 72-hour rule, and then they come back 3 weeks later and have this big story about whatever, trust me, someone who does that is going to do that again. I know people. I promise you. Unless there really is some extenuating circumstance, which I doubt, stick to your rule and tell the truth. Just say, no, you know what? I'm actually not interested in dating someone who can't communicate. It doesn't work for me. I wish you the very best. Stick to it, right? Stick to what it is that you say. It's someone who can completely stop being in touch with you, stop responding, and then come back 3 weeks later. I promise you, that's a pattern that will come back, right? People don't become who they are overnight, right? If someone is ghosting you in some way, this is an indication of who they are down the line too, right? So before you get even more involved, more connected to this person, let's just not. How about, let's just decide we're not doing that because it's so unhealthy and doesn't feel good. So when someone is telling you who they are, I'm telling you to believe them and to say it, if somebody dumps you after several weeks of dating, right? That's fine. Just like you may dump someone after several weeks of dating, but there has to be languaging. So for you, if someone tells you the truth and says, hey, it's just not a match, don't ask them all these questions. Don't blow up their phone. Have some self-respect. You can look at the dynamic and learn something about yourself from the dynamic. But it's not about what you did. And so you don't want to give up your power to other people and asking them, oh, is it something that I did? What's wrong with me? Because there's nothing wrong with you, right? You're learning as you're going along, just like everyone else in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s, right? This is a lifelong process. So if someone breaks up with you, be grown up and say thank you for being honest. I wish you the very best. And then I want you to be honest. If you want to break up with someone right now that you've been dating but you don't know how, do it. Text them. You don't owe them an in-person. Don't worry about it. It's better to do it by text than to not do it at all. So how do you bounce back from this process, right? Part of it is you figure out for yourself what are the signs and symbols that in the last video I shared that you were ignoring, that in your gut, you knew that something was going on. You knew that something was not right. You knew that something was happening, but you didn't want to deal with it. I want you to work on speaking the truth, speaking up, Don't collude with someone's bullshit behavior. Don't make it okay by normalizing them saying, yeah, we'll get together over the weekend, and then them calling you Monday night after not being in touch for 5 days. That is bullshit. And that is someone who is definitely having some avoidant issues and some intimacy problems. And if you don't call them out, then that's on you. So before you get into your next dating scene, I want you to really analyze if you have been ghosted. I want you to look at each situation and ask yourself a few questions. And one of them is, sometimes we attract people who have been in our life before, like parental figures and those things. So I'm just going to give you a quick thing, and don't worry, this will be in a little downloaded checklist that you can download and have. You're going to ask yourself the 3 questions about this person, which is, who do they remind you of? Where have you felt like this before? And why is this dynamic familiar to you of sort of chasing that person or whatever it is, the dynamic? And this will give you an indication if you are repeating something from the past. And then I want you to look at every situation where you feel like you've been ghosted or you have ghosted and analyze what was happening and what was the moment that you realized that either you couldn't be in contact with the person anymore and you couldn't handle it, or what were the signs, the red flags that you ignored in your relationships? Because by doing this little exercise, you're going to start to get to know your part of being ghosted. And you don't deserve that. And nobody else deserves it either. So let's all agree that we're going to treat each other with respect like human beings. And the more you know about yourself, the less likely you will be to fall victim of being ghosted. So if you like this video, share it on social media, share it with your friends, someone who you know has been through this experience. Ladies, if you have not joined my Real Love Revolution free group for doing a monthly live stream with me, I'm answering all of your Qs. All you need to go to is terricole.com/RLR and join us, join my free Facebook group. It's super fun. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing week. And as always, take care of you.